We got two things we're going to work on today. First, we're going to go over project 4. Um, Hopefully that went relatively well. We had a little extra time on it. So we'll go over my solution to it. Again, this is just one way to solve it. It's not the only way, right? There's tons of different ways to approach this. So I'm going to use a class for item because I think that's helpful and make that do a couple things for us. You'll see maybe that saves some time. Maybe you feel like it's more headache, but kind of like how that gets organized. And we'll spend a little bit more time looking at JavaFX, and we're going to look at how we can use a class to have all the business logic of our shop instead of putting everything in our controller method. Because that controller got kind of big here with all these checks for this, for that, for this, and whatever, building the receipt out, and we can do better. So that's what we got for today. It is December. Welcome to December, the last month. So we have today, we have all of next week. I'm not going to have too much more JavaFX stuff. I got a little bit more we'll talk about on the 6th probably. And then I think the 8th, 13th, and 15th will probably pretty much be project work time. I might spend a little bit of time looking at the 2D maze, the two-dimensional array. We only briefly did that once. So we'll spend a little bit more time looking at that as well, in case you're having any trouble with that. And then final project presentations on 12/20. So we'll fire up a Zoom session for everybody who's been attending remotely, so they can hop on, screen share. We can go from there. Again, we talked about the rubric on Monday, so it's if you get this piece done and you don't have the rest, that's okay. You can still get partial points, but the goal is everyone gets 100%. I'm more than happy for everyone to get 100%. That makes a really exciting final presentation day when everyone who presents does well on it. We can go from there. Let me fire up NetBeans, and we'll look at project 4 here. And then I had mentioned, sorry, I think before I turned on the stream here, I do have to leave just a little bit early. I got to go get my kids their COVID shots. You're welcome to stay and hang out and work, but I got to leave probably about 11:10, 11:15 or so to make it back in time. All right, so let's grab the project 4. So this was our little shop here with 2 modes. We had the manage mode, so you can manage all the items in your store, manage your inventory, or selling mode, right? Letting someone buy stuff from your store. So, imagine like a little kiosk or something. Not that we would have a command line terminal-based kiosk, but not too long ago, some stores used to have stuff like that. I feel like, is it Home Depot or Lowe's? They still have something like that on the back end. It's not like a pretty little screen. I'm trying to remember last time I bought something there. I think they still had this ugly like terminal-looking application, but that's all right. So let's get this loaded. We'll look at managing. We were going to add a new item, which was creating a file, getting the quantity and price. We're going to update an item, which told me the current quantity and price, and then let me give new values for quantity and price, which is essentially just overwriting the file, and then deleting an item, saying we don't sell this thing anymore, right? And then for the selling stuff, we'll let them pick anything they want. We'll see if there's a file with that name on it, because we don't really have a good way of saying, hey, here's all the things we sell. There's some interesting things we could do. Again, looking at some of the stuff in the textbook, you can get a list of files out, so we could do something fancy and like say, hey, everything that's a .txt file we could list out, but it's a little above and beyond what we want to do for our intro course here. Might be more fun like in the next course. If we do have it, great, we'll tell them the price and quantity, ask how many they want to buy, give them the total price, pretend to ask for some payment information, and then we need to update the quantity in the file, right? So if they bought 10 and we had 20, now we need to go update that. 20 minus 10 gives me 10 more of these things so that the file stays up to date. If it doesn't, if we don't have a file, just tell them they can't buy it. And either of these just kind of loop forever. There's no need to change between the two, manage and sell mode. They can just restart the program. But in manage mode, just let them go until they want to quit. And in sell mode, let them go until they want to quit. So let's give this a shot. Maybe if NetBeans wants to cooperate. I got to remember to get chat here on my phone. I should just bring the other laptop, but it seems silly to have a whole laptop set up just to watch chat. Here we go. All right, so we'll start a new project for... Come on, new project. You can do it, NetBeans. So this is our project 4 morning version. Really got to order that new PC. Or just reload this one probably. That might do it. blow everything away and start fresh. That's probably what I should do.
Is that the surface?
Yeah, the Surface Book. So it's super nice to have the pen for drawing things. That's been, I think, the coolest thing that it does. I never use it in tablet mode, so like being able to take the top off is kind of silly. So I think their new one, the Studio, which it's got a different hinge, but it still has a touch screen, but it's not detachable. I think is would be plenty for me. All right. So anyway, so we're dealing with items. So what I want to do is make an item class that represents all thing items. I'm going to make a new Java class here for item. And then item had a name, item had a quantity, and item had a price. Right, so we're thinking the attributes that this class is going to have here. And they're all private, right? So private string for name, a private, probably an integer for quantity, right? You don't have half of something usually for sale, and a private double for price, because we care about pennies. And then let's send NetBeans to do the work for us, right? Right-click, insert code. We want getters and setters. We'll make life easy for us. Get, set anything we want. We probably don't change the name often, but sure, it doesn't matter too much here. Not too concerned. And then we need a constructor. So let's use name, quantity, and price. How about all of them for the constructor? So if you give me a name, quantity, and price, I'll make an item. Okay, so this will represent the item class itself. Then things we're going to do with item, right? If we want to be able to write item to a file, that's something that could belong to item, like write yourself to a file. So let's write a method for it. So let's do a public void write to file. So to do that, we need a print writer. So printer, print writer equals a new print writer given the name plus .txt. Because really the txt is not necessary, but it's going to make it easier in my operating system for it to know it's a text file that I can open up. That's all we get with putting a txt here. This could be .anything. It could be like item. It could be .inventory. And now that we don't have to have 3-character names. Is that too small there up on the screen? I'm sorry. Is it okay? Okay, I can change the font a little bit if you want me to make it a little bigger. It's somewhere in here. Fonts and colors, right? Let's go, how about 28? Just a little bit. It doesn't deal well with my widescreen on the projectors, I think, is the problem. Is that better? Okay. Okay. All right, and now with print writer, right, first we need to import it, and then second, it could throw an exception. Now, there's really nothing we can do inside the class to deal with that exception. Right, so what we want to do is we just want to pass the buck and say, okay, that's fine. Whoever called write to file should deal with this exception because they need to know that it didn't work. Inside the item class itself, there's really nothing we can do to fix it. So instead of doing a try-catch block, we can just say, hey, we might throw an exception. So this method, write to file, might throw a file not found exception, and it's up to whoever calls write to file to deal with it. Instead of, because we could put a try catch here, but if we catch, there's nothing to do, and you don't, inside a class, want to system out print line. You don't want to print any errors out, because who knows if they're actually going to use this item class in a console-based application. Right? This could be a web application that writes items to files, and who knows. So we'll make the print writer, and then we'll use our print writer, and we're going to print line, how about quantity first? And then we'll use our print writer, and we'll print line, print writer, print line, the price. And then we'll close it, print writer.close. Right? You open the file, you read or write from it, and you close it. So we opened it, we wrote to it, and closed it. So then our name, .txt, that's right, txt. Just to make life easy, Windows won't know what to do with an item file, so that's all. Oh, I still don't have chat, but no one's chatting. Okay, so we can write ourselves to a file. Okay? So then in our actual code here, the part that we know is a console-based application, let's go ask them what do they want to do. So we'll have a scanner for keyboard. There's a new scanner. Scanner given system in. And then we'll ask them what do they want to do. Do you want to, I don't know, like manage, M for manage, or S sell items? Like, I don't know, like, I expect an M or an S maybe? And anything you want to do, right, that tells them what you're expecting. is going to make life easy here. And we can say, and then we'll have a string for choice is the keyboard next line, and if choice equals ignoring case, nope, not subsequence, equals ignore case. There we go, that one. If it equals M, then we're in manage mode, right? Now in manage mode, we want to keep on looping, so we'll say while choice equal ignoring case, how about Q for quit? And while it's not a Q for quit, let's keep on going, right? So in manage mode, we're going to keep them in a loop that lets them go over, sorry, I'm going to raise that up, lets them go over and over and over as many options as they want to do. So then we'll ask them again, okay, do you want to add an item, do you want to update an item, or do you want to delete an item? Now, someone actually had a really cool approach to this where they just said, give me the name of an item, and then if the file existed, you could update or delete it, and if it didn't exist, you could add it. I thought that was kind of clever. Rather than a separate add, update, or like, what do you want to do, add, update, or delete? They said, what do you want to manage? And it was either add, update, or delete based on if the file existed. Either approach is fine. I'm not too concerned. I think most people probably did the add, update, or delete. Like, what do you want to do first? And then ask for an item name. Rather than what's the item name, and then did that. So we'll do that first. So we can say, do you want to, I don't know, add an item, you update an item, or delete an item. Okay, that's a little bit long, so we can bump that down a little bit. So what do you want to do? Add, update, or delete. And then we'll get that, or Q for quit, right? Delete an item, or quit, right? And then we'll get choice is the keyboard.next line. And if the choice equals ignoring case is A for add, then we'll do the add thing, right? So to add an item, we need the name, we need the price, we need the quantity. So we'll ask them, what is the item name? Get a string for item name, keyboard next line. We'll get a, what quantity do you have? Quantity do you have? And then that's, again, an integer. So int quantity is an integer.parseInt of the keyboard.next line. And then the price. What price? What is the item price? I don't know. It's the item price. And that's a double. Again, so we want decimal places. So price. So that's double.parseDouble. Double given the keyboard.next line. So there's a K in there. Okay, now we've got those three things. Now I can make an item. So item equals a new item, given the name, the quantity, and the price. Item name. There we go. Okay, so now I have an item. Now I need to write it to a file. So this now needs to go in a try block, because I know this could throw an exception. I'm going to catch a file not found exception, EX, and then here then I can print out that exception or tell them, hey, it didn't work, something bad happened, try again, maybe, I don't know. And then we can just print out the exception itself for a message. I don't know, everyone's like, tell your administrator, here's an error message, here's an error code, anything you want for an error here. If it didn't work, it's unlikely that they can fix it, but they can tell someone else, right? That sort of thing. So do item.write to file. That's it. Right, that makes the file. That's our try catch for add an item. So let's see if it works. Let's give it a run. Again, that compile on save thing kills me every time. NetBeans is weird sometimes. One of these days I'll Google how to turn that off. One of these days. Let's give it a run. So again, all that works is manage and add. So we have to manage, we have to add. Everything else just will do nothing, and that's fine. So we want to manage items, and we want to add an item. I'm going to add coffee. We've got maybe a dozen coffees, and we sell them for maybe $1.99. And now I should see my file view. There should now be a coffee.txt with 10 and $1.99. That seems to be working. Right? I was able to add an item. Now the funny thing, if you go add an item that already exists, well, too bad, we just overwrote it. So there's no like safety checking here, which is a little bit bad. We feel a little bit bad about that. That's the benefit of that approach, where you just ask for the item first, and then if the file exists, they can update. If it doesn't exist, you can add. Again, sure. That was above and beyond what was expected here in the rubric, so that's okay. We'll just feel a little bad about it. But this seems to work so far. Okay. Are we done? I think I closed the output, right? Oh, let's quit. Q for quit. All right, so we're done. I gotta close the rest of this stuff here, don't I? There we go. There we go. All right, so let's do that. Now we'll do else if my choice dot equals ignoring case. How about update? U for update. If we want to update an item, well, the first thing I need is the item name. What's the item name? Now, we're doing this a lot here. Anytime you have the same code twice, you should feel bad about yourself, right? So let's turn this into a method. So there's actually some easy ways to do this in NetBeans, because NetBeans is phenomenal. So if you right-click and highlight some code, you go to refactor, and you say introduce method here. This is get item name. And it turns the code you had highlighted into a method. What's the item name? Gets the item name, returns the item name. How cool is that? Now it passes the scanner here so that you don't have to define it as a static variable in the class. Right? You don't necessarily have to do that, or you can make it a static variable. Either one's fine. I think it's fine to just pass the scanner. That way you don't have to make a new scanner every time inside of every method. This makes life easy. So you'll see it hands it scanner, our keyboard object, which is our scanner that gets keyboard input and gets the item name. So do the same thing. So we'll have an item name equals get item name. Okay, now we need to make a file, right? So we're gonna make a file. This is my item file equals a new file, given the item name plus .txt, because we added txt to all these files, right? Okay, now we've got a file. Again, sure, let's add our import for it. Great. Now we can do some sanity checking, right? If my item file dot exists, no, exists, not extends, exists. If it exists, excuse me, if it exists, great, we can update it. If it doesn't exist, we can't find that item. I don't know why the computer's we, but sure. I don't know. All right, so if it does exist, we need to go read the contents out, tell them what the current quantity and price are, right? And then we need to update it and write it again. So a couple options. We could just open it, read the contents out, spit it out, and then ask for new values. To do that, we need to make a new file object. The other option we have is we could make a file object, like make the item class itself, go read the file, and populate its own quantity and price. That's one option. Kind of like that option. I think that's kind of fun. So to do that, and again, this is totally optional, we could come to item here, we can make another constructor. So another way to make an item is if you give it a file. If you give it an item file, it can go make itself. It can go read the contents out itself, right? And go populate its values. So if we give it a file here, we can go say, okay, my name is going to be the item file dot get name. Now the problem with get name is it's going to include the .txt, and we don't want that. So what we need to do is we need to take a substring of that and say, okay, hey, start at 0 and go up to the length of get name. So item file dot get name again dot length -4. So take out the .txt characters. So get the length of it, trim off the last 4. So we're just taking a portion of the file name here. Does that make sense? Again, not necessarily, not really all that necessary, but I think this is fun. It's a fun little approach. So hand it a file, it goes, gets the name of the file, and we're gonna go read it. So to read it, we make a scanner. So this is my file reader equals a new scanner given the item file. Now we got to import our scanner, and again, this might crash, right? Bad things can happen here. So there's really nothing we can do about that. If a bad thing happens, let's just throw the exception and make whoever called this method deal with it. If you tried to make an item out of a file that doesn't exist, there's nothing item can do about that, right? Whoever asked to make that item needs to deal with that you gave it a bad file. So we're just going to keep on throwing that exception. We're passing the buck, essentially. Okay, and then we'll set our quantity is my file reader dot next line, next line, Yep, and then we'll convert. So you could use the next int, next doubles here if you wanted, right, in scanner, but again, we don't do any of that, so I'm just going to parse them all, integer.parseInt, because I think it's easier to just stick with next lines and convert. And then my price is my parseInt. There we go. Double.parseDouble, given the file reader dot next line. So we'll read the quantity off the first line, and we'll read the price off the second line, converting to integer and double. So we'll set our attributes based on that file, and then when we're done, we close the file reader. Right? We open it, we read write from it, and we close it. Always do those three things. We okay so far? So just one way, essentially we could do this exact same thing elsewhere and just make a new item. This way is kind of cute because now you ask the item constructor to make an item out of this itself, which I think that's the idea, that anything that has to do with item can go in the item class, right? All the things that item does, we can put in the item class itself, right? Item should know how to read a file out of itself because it knows how to write itself to a file, kind of both ways here. So once I have that file, I'll make an item equals new item given the item file. And again, this could crash here, so we need a try catch. We don't want to throw here, right? Because we want to actually deal with this. I don't know, something that happened, try again maybe. And we'll print out the exception. Again, we don't expect these to happen because we're doing that sanity check first, right? We know the file exists, so we shouldn't get a file not found, but Java doesn't know that we already did that check. It's not as smart as we are, right? So it just says, hey, a bad thing could happen, you have to deal with it, so sure. Right, if we did that, then now we're going to print out the current quantity, or current quantity is item.getQuantity. Right? It already read the quantity out of the file, so now we can ask that item for what its current quantity value is. Then we can print out the current price, item.getPrice. Okay, so we do that, and now we need to ask them for new values, right? Essentially, we're going to ask them, what quantity do you have? What's the item price? These things here. Huh. Well, if we're going to do that, the same code twice, we should not, right? We should have a method for it. Now, the problem is we kind of need to make the item 2. That's not really what we want. I don't know. Doing two things isn't going to work. We can't return two values. We could return one value, right? Ask for the quantity here, ask for the price here, separately. We could do that. So let's go for it that way. How about that? So let's refactor, introduce a method. This is get quantity, item quantity. Great. And right here, let's do that 1, 2. So refactor, introduce method. Call this one get item price. Okay, and then I can do these same things in here. We have quantity and price. Now, I don't need to make a new item here. I already have an item. There we go. So I can just say item.setQuantity, given the quantity. And I can say item.setPrice, given the price. Right? I'm going to update the existing item here. I don't need to make a brand new one because I already have an item here. And I can say item.writeToFile. So give me the new price and quantity, update them in the object, and then say, hey, write yourself to a file, by the way. That makes sense? So this is my update here. If it doesn't exist, great, we can't do that. Now, else if they wanted to delete a file. Delete. So again, we need the item name. So we'll do that item name here. And we'll make a file out of it. And then we say item file.delete. Now this one's funny because if the file doesn't exist, delete still works here. If you look at .delete, it returns a Boolean value of whether or not it deleted or not. So if we wanted to, we could check and say, hey, we actually deleted the file, or hey, that wasn't an item. Again, that's above and beyond things we were looking for, so we can just say delete. Right? Or we can put that in a quick little if. So if it deletes here, right? Oh, that's a lowercase I if there, sorry. Print removed item from inventory. Otherwise, we'll say we don't sell that. I don't know. We don't have that item. We don't have that item anyway. Why not? Okay, does it make sense for a delete then? So now we can update, we can delete, we can add. So that's our manage mode, essentially. Let's give it a try. We already have coffee. Let's go maybe update coffee first. So manage items, let's update coffee. Right, current quantity and price, 12 and $1.99. Great. New quantity, so we just restocked. Now I have 24 coffees, and we're gonna put them on sale here. Let's go $1.50. Okay, and then my coffee file then should be 10. Oh, let me reopen that. Oh, you know what? I didn't close it. My mistake. I didn't call close. Oh, doesn't this close it? Should have closed it. Right to file should close. Coffee, $10.99. Uh-oh, something didn't work right. We're supposed to write it to file. Item price. Did we do it wrong? This is for update. We got the current quantity and price. We asked for new quantity and price. We set them. We tried to write to file. Well, that's a bummer. All right, so let's stop and put it in debug mode. See what we did wrong here. Item. Yeah, it closed it when it was done. All right, so I'm going to put it in debug mode. Let's try it like over here maybe. I'll run it in debug mode. We'll see what's happening. Come on. Let's go. Oh, it is running here. All right, so let's manage items. Let's update an item. Coffee. That's the right one. This one says 10, but it just read the right values out. What the heck? It got the right values. Is my file wrong? I wonder if net means it's at the end dumb. Let me just open this up here and go see if we can find it in Windows. That's in my documents, in GitHub, CIS 1500. 1500 for fall. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's 1501. 1500 for fall. For project 4 in the morning. There's coffee. Has the right values. All right. NetBeans is letting me down. NetBeans, you suck. Why? Like something's cached in here. Like it's opening the old version of it. Open in system. Wait. What? That's 10 and $1.99. That's 24 and $1.50. I'm freaking out, man. That.
You are freaking out. I didn't know if I should.
Let's see. I just want the name. Yeah, project. Oh my goodness, friends. I have the wrong project 4 open. That's project 4 not in the morning. Oh, guys, come on, you're supposed to catch me when I do dumb stuff like that. There we go. 24 and $1.50.
We could read that over there. It's hard. Look.
Yeah, the tree view is so small. I'm sorry.
It's not this. It's not that. It's the resolution that you're.
Yeah, I'm on widescreen, high def. These projectors suck. So I should have noticed that it said 10 and $1.99. I never said 10. I had a dozen before, and I wasn't paying enough attention. Okay, so it is working correctly, which is good. Okay, I feel better now that the code works. All right, let's go add another file. Let's manage some items. Let's add something. Let's sell some tea. Let's maybe have 10 teas for $1 each. Now I have a tea file, right? 10 and $1 each. Life is good. Now let's go delete it. Let's delete our tea. Say we don't want to sell tea anymore. Tea's been removed. So it seems to be working so far for manage. I feel pretty good about this. So let's go ahead and we'll quit. Let's go and sell stuff now. All right. So, oh my goodness, this is big, long, and ugly. So I'm feeling bad about this. We should break this up into other things, like add could be its own method here. right? Update could be its own method here. Delete could be its own method here. That sort of thing, right? So it's not quite so large. Does that make sense? And then all we get is the menu in here, essentially. Right? We could take all of this and turn that into an add item, refactor, introduce a method. This is add item. Great. And then here's an update item. We'll take all of that. Refactor, introduce a method, or invalid selection. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, everything inside of here. There we go. And notice I had it didn't have the last else there. Introduce a method for update item. Did it do it? It didn't do it. Introduce method.
You have one red line.
Oh, I do?
Oh, no.
Oh, that's my breakpoint, I think. Let's do refactor, introduce a method, or update item. And then this can be delete item, refactor, introduce method, or delete item. Okay. Feels a little bit better now, right? Okay, I like that. And I guess actually like this delete item thing maybe even could be part of the item class itself. Right? We could ask it to delete itself maybe? I don't know. It's not, I mean, it's one call to say delete. And we never made an item instance here, so I think this is probably fine. We're just dealing with the files. All right, so if it wasn't managed, then else if the choice.equals_ignore case was cell, right? Cell mode here. And then otherwise, if it wasn't managed and it wasn't cell, I can't do that. I don't know. Just give them something here. So if they wanted to sell items here, okay? Now we're going to have a string for item name, right? We'll start it off as empty, and while item name dot equals ignoring case quit, because we probably don't sell something called quit. And while it's not quit, let's go loop and let them do as many things as they want, right? This way they can buy as many items as they want, right? So all that happens in the loop here. Okay, so then we need to ask them what item they want. So item, let's print out, what do you want to buy? And then get item name equals keyboard next line. Okay, and now we need to make a file out of it. So make a file, item file, there's a new file. File, oh my goodness, given the item name plus .txt. Okay, and then if that item file .exists, great, we'll do something. Otherwise, tell them we don't sell that. We don't sell that. Okay, if it does exist, well, let's make an item out of it, right? Item equals a new item, given that item file. This is another reason I like this constructor, because we know we need to get the current quantity and price on cell mode as well. So we're kind of planned ahead. I know I was going to read a file more than once here. So we'll make that item file. And again, this could crash, so let's do a try catch here. We don't need a logger. We'll just tell them something bad happened. No soup for you. And sure, print out the exception. Okay, if we have the item then. Now, we've already done this, right? Where we printed out the item quantity and price. So let's don't do the same thing twice. Introduce a method for it. Now, let me show you real quick here. If we do copy paste, this is like one of the coolest things this does. So here's cell mode here. So if we have it in here twice and we go refactor, grab those two lines, refactor, introduce a method for display, I don't know, print current item. We'll just say print current item. It says, hey, do you want to replace this duplicate? It found you had this exact same code more than once. Do you want to replace that one too? Yes, please. And it does both for you with a print current item. Now we have print current item here, and we have print current item here. Like it replaced it automatically. It's so smart. I love it. Okay, work smarter, not harder. Be lazy. In that you want to be efficiently lazy, right? So all good developers are. So print the current details, and we'll ask them how many do you want to buy? How many do you want to buy? And then we'll get a quantity. So int for quantity. equals keyboard.nextLine, integer.parseInt of the keyboard.nextLine. Right, and then we need to check if the quantity is greater than the item.getQuantity. Tell them you can't buy that many, or we don't have that many. Sure, we don't have that many. Try again. Right. Otherwise, well, what do we want to do? Well, we need to take that item, reduce the quantity. So item.setQuantity to item.getQuantity minus the quantity. Right? We already have this item object that has a quantity property. So let's go change it. Let's set it to what it used to be minus how much we're selling. And then item.writeFile. Right? This will update the file with the new quantity. Boom, done. So then we need to ask them for payment. Please enter, or what? Please send Bitcoin to, I don't know, some gibberish here. I don't know. And then keyboard next line. So this one's a little funny for managing payments because like you can't charge them, and no one's going to give you their private wallet address anyway, or their like private key to their wallet. So I don't know, the transaction approach here is a little bit funny because they have to initiate the transaction with crypto. There's no like charging their wallet for things, so that idea doesn't work. But that's okay. We'll just pretend they did something. I don't know. Right? This was the pretending to, or enter your credit card information, sure. Right? All that good stuff. Okay. Right? Enter the payment information, fake numbers, think they're buying something, allow them to keep buying, tell them they can't buy stuff. And I think that's it. Right? For buying and selling, let's give it a try. All right, so let's sell some items now. Let's sell some coffee. Let's buy 10 coffees because I'm really thirsty. Sure. And now let's look at coffee again, and we should have 10 less. Oh, we didn't tell them the total price. That's right, we have to tell them the total price. Almost done here. One coffee. Oh, we never told them to quit either, so it's a little bit sloppy here. So quit, we'll end it here. All right, almost there. So let's go fix that up here. So if the item name equals ignore case, or if it doesn't equal quit again, then we can go do this stuff, right? Essentially. Because if they entered quit, we should just stop anyway. Right?
At any time.
This is for our item name, so or quit to, or just quit. If people probably know what quit means, right? Now this is a little bit ugly because like everything has to get tabbed in one more. So what we could do then instead, we could say if item name equals quit, we could call break and end the loop, and then none of this stuff has to be tabbed in an extra, which is kind of nice. Where's that now? That was this line here. Is that it? Yeah, that was that line. Right, so we can break the loop, and then I know usually I try and avoid breaks, but what that lets us do is not have to have everything tabbed in one more just to make sure it wasn't quit. So I kind of like it here, if that's okay with you. And really all of this now then becomes my sell item mode. So we'll refactor that, introduce a method for sell item. Okay, and now we have sell item. So now my main method is kind of nice and clear. Like it's a menu, and then it calls methods. Right? This is, I think, a pretty clean way of approaching main. Sure, put the menu in here. That's fine. If you want to even have a menu loop method, you could do that if you want to be extra fancy. But you know, this is, I can pretty much fit it on one screen here. If I wasn't zoomed in so much, I could see all of main on one screen. Feel pretty good about that. Right? And then each method, some of them are a little long, but essentially each method fits on one screen, one page. Right? That's a good aiming point. If they get too long, it's a clue you might be doing too much. Not necessarily. It's not a hard and fast rule, but just in terms of we want things to be like in nice chunks. Let's do one thing. Let's do the one thing here and kind of chunk them out. So we have a bunch of methods here. We wrote a decent amount of code. We're at like 160 lines, but you know, tons of curly braces and stuff in here. So don't count too much of that. Line count is a terrible metric to use for productivity. It's just one number. That's all it is. So, and if you want extra lines, then you start putting your curly braces down here, and now you've like doubled your lines essentially. Look, I have twice as many lines of code. Yeah, Oh, okay. How do we feel about the project? That make sense? Okay. And again, the item class, totally optional. There's no points for it in the rubric there. Right? I like this idea that if we have a noun, right, that's potentially a class in our solution, all the things about that noun we can put into that class. Right? All the things item does go in the item class. So just a way of kind of separating out our code, doing things bit by bit by bit by bit. Nice functional decomposition, which hopefully you all said at your Thanksgiving dinner. Right? Got everyone to look at you funny. Turns out, though, my older brother's a software engineer. That's actually why I got into computers, because he was into computers. My parents are both engineers. My father-in-law is a programmer. So, like, everyone knows I'm nerdy, and they don't even bat an eye at me anymore. But it's okay. It's a good family business, I guess.
We probably expanded on it.
They're not quite as embraced the nerd as I have. Like, I've got my whole D&D tattoo and everything, too. So I've gone a little deep into that, but that's okay. So here's project 4, morning. All right, do you want to take a break now and then talk more about GUI stuff? That way we're not cutting in the middle, and it's like maybe half an hour, 20 minutes or so more GUI stuff. And then I got to take off a little bit early. Apologize for that. We'll have next week, we can look maybe at two-dimensional arrays for managing that maze here. So we did two-dimensional arrays once. We said, hey, it's an array of arrays, or an array list of array lists. And then you have rows and columns, essentially, is how we think of them. So we can spend some more time looking at that as well. But we'll look at how we can use a class to do the business logic in a GUI application. Kind of like what we did here. We had item to manage all the item stuff here. We'll take our little coffee shop and we'll make a drink class out of it that has all the attributes and can build its own receipt. So we don't have to do all that in our controller methods. Okay? So we take a couple minutes. I'll throw some music on. We'll come back, say 10:55 or so, and then we'll finish up, do about 20 minutes or so of some more GUI stuff. We can go from there, okay? Awesome. Oh, that's the wrong. Oh, I already had break time here. So it's 10:55 a.m. or so. Alrighty, folks, we're back here. We had some fun talking about metagaming. The World Chess Championship just had its 5th draw, but that's okay. We're still hoping Magnus pulls out a win somewhere. Maybe when he's got the white pieces, he'll go for it, but we'll see here. So we want to spend some time looking at how we can update our project here, our more GUI fun, so that we don't have this ginormous control method that does everything inside of it here. I mean, this is not even like the biggest thing here, but what we want to do is see how can we use a class that takes the business logic, so we don't need to build our own receipt, build our own total cost, add our own tax in the GUI side. Right? The GUI, it should be responsible for showing some buttons and doing something when you click on it. Any business logic that needs to happen, we can move over into some class code. So we're going to go add a new class here for drink. And then drink then, had a name and it had a cost, essentially, for attributes. So we had a private string for name, and it had a private double for cost. And then this is, again, not ideal because different states have different sales tax, but we're going to pretend we're just a Michigan coffee shop. So we're going to make a public static final double sales tax. 0.06. So we'll just put in here sales tax as 6% static here. And it doesn't need to be an instance attribute, right? All drinks will have the exact same sales tax charged. So we don't need sales tax to be an instance attribute because it's static, it belongs once to the class. That saves us a little bit of time here. So we get name and cost, and then we'll let NetBeans write the rest of the code for us. So we'll go insert code, insert some getters and setters. Oh, I missed that one. Insert getter and setters. Yes, please. We'll add a constructor. Insert code or constructor. You probably need the name and cost for those. We'll add the constructor that gives me both. Great. And then we want a way to get a receipt out and a way to get the total cost out. So we have total cost. We don't have with tax. So we also then probably need, we were going to have a milk option, right? So probably a string for milk. Now milk, though, you don't necessarily need to have milk. So we're going to default milk to be empty string because we don't want nulls. We could do nulls if we wanted. I guess we can do the null handling. So if you don't have a milk, we'll assign it null. We just need to be a little more careful with this. So anything that's a reference type, right, that deals with a class, like string as a class, can be null, means it has no value at all, which if you're not careful can crash things, right? If you ask for the length of milk and it's null, you'll get a null pointer exception and your program crashes, and we're sad. So when we build out the receipt, we need to be a little bit careful with this here. So then we'll have a string receipt, or get receipt. How about that? Get receipt. So the get receipt is essentially the exact same thing we did here in the controller, right? It's the name, the cost, the milk, the cost, tax, the cost, total cost, right? All those things that we did over here. So I'm going to copy essentially all of this here into my get receipt, and we're just going to trim it out. So we don't have any of this. We are going to have if, we're even just going to set that as the name. So we don't need any of that here. So we're going to start our receipt as the name. So that'll be the name, right? And then we want to add in the plus $sign plus cost. Right? That's the start of our receipt. So name, dollar, cost. Throw those three things together, smush them there. Then we can check, hey, if milk is not null, if we have a milk option, then let's go add our milk option. So essentially, whatever the milk was set as, we'll take our receipt plus equals that new line character plus the milk option. Now the problem is we don't have the cost associated with the milk. So maybe we want to add maybe a milk cost. Private double milk cost. How about that? And then we'll set milk cost to 0. So now we also need gets and sets for milk cost though too, right? So we'll close that down. So milk plus space and the $sign plus the milk cost. Right? How's that look? So we can add the milk and the milk cost here. And then our sales tax is going to be 6% of the cost plus the milk cost. right? And then we can add the sales tax, and this is the exact same thing, right? And then the sales tax plus the milk cost plus the cost. Right, so that receipt then, I think, works out, and when we're done, we can return the receipt. Now we have a single string here that we're going to build out based on what our drink is, what the cost is, if we have any milk, what the milk is, what the cost of the milk is, calculate the sales tax, and milk cost is going to default to 0, right, which is good, but now we need gets and sets for them. So let's go back and do our insert code, insert getters and setters. We'll add ones for milk and for milk cost. Right, so now you can get milk, set milk, get milk cost, set milk cost. That makes sense? So we took all the business logic that builds the receipt and put it out here into a drink class. So then in the controller, what we can do, which is really fun, is this list is all the FXML added attributes. We can still add our own private attributes. So I can have a private drink called drink attribute in this class. And now anywhere else in my class, I can reference a drink object. So this controller will have an instance of drink. Oh, it's already called drink here. This is the, I don't know, drink. Shoot, how about selected drink? Selected drink. How about that? We'll call it a selected drink because I already had a drink as a toggle group name, so I couldn't use that same name. Right, now in our, oh, we still have sugars too. We can go add sugars too. So we'll have a string for sugar. Have it string for sugar, and we'll set sugar equals null, right? And then add our gets and sets for sugars, or insert code, gets and sets for sugar. And then in our with milk here, then we'll do the same thing. If sugar does not equal null, take our receipt plus equal to sugar. Sugar. Or we're going to say with, right? With, I think. Right, so if we have milk, great. If we have sugar, great. We'll add those lines, right? Add them in here. And you can get and set the sugar as a string. So we'll default them to null. They don't exist. So we'll have a drink. Now initialize is essentially the constructor. So what I want to do here then is I want to set that drink object in the constructor equals a new drink. And now my defaults were coffee, right, which was, what do you say, 10 cents?
Yeah.
Coffee and 10 cents. Oh, sorry, this was selected drink. Selected drink equals a new drink, coffee for 10 cents. That's the default one here. Now, show receipt doesn't need to do all of this nonsense. It needs to do some of this nonsense, though. So if the brewed coffee is selected, then I'm going to say drink.set name. No, selected drink, sorry. Selected drink dot set name to coffee. And selected drink dot set price to, oh my goodness, set price to 10 cents. Is it not? Set cost. Set cost. Set. My goodness, friends. Cost. Why does tab not work for me sometimes? Set cost. So this is what we're going to do then. So instead of building it out ourselves, we're going to say, hey, class, by the way, this is you. This was espresso for 50 cents. This was decaf for 10 cents. This was tea for $10. My goodness, you guys are monsters. Okay, and then when we picked different milks, right? So instead of setting the receipt here, we're going to say selected drink dot set milk to 2%. 2% milk, right? There's no cost associated, so that's fine. We leave it at 0. This was whole milk. Now we have some costs here. So this was soy milk. And then we'll set the drink, selected drink dot set milk costs then to 50 cents for soy milk. Right? Same for oat milk. Same for almond milk. This was oat milk and almond milk. Almond milk. And then if we had sugars, right, we'd set sugar. Set sugar to 1 sugar. right? Or 2 sugars. 2 sugars. Now we don't need any of this, so all we need to do to set our receipt then is my selected drink dot get receipt. So we didn't really save a lot of code here. We saved a little bit, perhaps. But all of that logic, all the work of how the receipt is presented, goes over into the drink class, because drink should know how to write its own receipt, essentially. Right? This is what drink I am. It's spitting it out here, and it does all the tax for me. Okay? So it shouldn't have changed anything here. It still should do all the same things. Right? It should. But we haven't changed anything functionally, but we've broken up how we've designed it here to make the controller be responsible for, hey, you click a button, tell the class to do something, and then class go do something for me. So coffee, black coffee, sales tax, great, with some sugars, set some sugars, change the milks, add in some other costs here, right? Hey, whole milk is, we should be setting that to 0, right? That's no good. So when we set the milk cost, we need to make sure we're setting it back to 0 here, right? Because otherwise we left in that 50 cents before. So you always want to set it here if it's changing in the other ones. All right, so not a whole lot of difference here. Now what I want to do is I want to add something in here too for fun. Let's see here if we can get this loaded. Come on, scene builder. I'm going to add a way that you can buy more than one drink here. I'm going to show you this thing called a text area, which is super cool. Yep, here we go. So there's our drop downs. Let's grab, and it's in controls. I'm going to find a text area. Text areas are nice because they will automatically scroll for you. Let's just throw this down here, maybe. Sure, why not? Come on. And we'll call this the text area. Doesn't have to be anything super interesting. Okay, we'll come back, right-click the fxml file, make controller. That's where all the magic happens. Now, when we go buy a drink, right, so on my buy drink here, instead of just show receipt, what I want to do is, I still want to show the receipt, but I'm going to take my text area, and I'm going to do append text, the drink.getReceipt. No, selected drink, sorry, selected drink.getReceipt. So when you click on buy, it's going to add it to this receipt, and that text will stay there then, even as we pick other ones. And the other fun thing, I can show the receipt for my default drink here too. Like once I pick my default coffee for 10 cents, we can show that receipt. So that's like, hey, the self-ordering kiosk, everyone wants a regular coffee, we'll just leave that up on the screen for them to pick by default. Or we could go in and take the buttons, take out the pre-selected buttons, so they have to go pick. Oh, it didn't show the receipt. Shoot. Wait a second. Oh, I'm doing the wrong handler. I'm sorry. We don't want it to add here. That's no good. Hang on. I'm mistaken on which controller was which. So we want the buy drink to be separate here. Sorry. So we want this one to be the buy button click handler. The other ones can be the same. Okay. Then we'll go make the controller. That's right, because they were all the same buttons here. So I only want to do this when I click the buy button. When you click the buy button, then we'll append the text here to that. So all the other button clicks, then we'll update the receipt here. Show receipt. Those ones are selected. Why didn't it show my label? I don't know. Not the build and clean. Oops, wrong button. Let's see if this one runs. Close that down. So in your text-based adventure game, if you wanted to have like an adventure log, like, hey, you move south, you could append text to a text area really easily. Oh, there it is. So sure, okay, we got our, did I hide the receipt? Is that behind that here? It is. Yep, that's my bad. I gotta move that real quick. That's why I wasn't seeing anything. I put it on top of the label. That was my mistake. I wanted the label like lower here. But you can see as you start buying more drinks here, this window will automatically scroll for you. Right? So in your adventure game, you can just kind of have this running log of, hey, you attack, you miss, you get hit, you take damage, you search the room, you find gold. All that can just kind of just keep appending over and over and over here. And that label. come on. Show me the label. I gotta move the text area out. Okay. Find the label. Give the label some text so I can grab it. Drag that down here. And then make my window a little bigger. Okay, we'll put this back. There we go. Save that. All right, one more run. Let's make sure it works the way we expect it to work here. Okay, so here's my default coffee. Great. If I want to just buy that, go for it. If I want to add some sugars, right, buy that. Now I see coffee with sugars. Oop, I probably need to append some more text. One more. And I append the text. Let's do one more text area. Append text. Let's add in that new line character just to separate those a little bit more, because otherwise they're running together. But essentially you can just keep on buying coffees and it will scroll for you. So using the class code, then all the business logic happens there, and the UI just says, hey, if you click a button, tell the class to do something. That's the linkage we want here. Okay? So I've got to run. I got to go take my kids to get their shot. I'll commit this here to GitHub, and we can go from there. So here's a GUI, more GUI with classes. So that's the idea. So when you have a player class or an NPC class or a room class, we can have labels or things that we set based on what their values are. And anytime they change, we just update the labels as a sort of that design we want to go with. That'll make life easy for us here. All right, so thanks for hanging out online, folks. I'll see you around.